welcome to Cooking with Dr. Dewey Stevens. Today we are making... You should tell him. Did you tell him? Yeah, I'm getting there. I'll get to that. Today we are making chorizo and eggs. So excited, you should really tell him. Dude, bring it down. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Today we are making one of my all-time favorite go-to comfort breakfast foods, and that's chorizo and eggs. Chorizo con huevos! Anywho, I think I mentioned on a previous episode that I am very fond of chorizo, and when I'm preparing to make chorizo, something kind of just comes over me, like Dr. Stevens and Mr. Chorizo. My apologies for my alternate identity over here. It's kind of, yeah. I'm so excited about the chorizo. Yeah, we get it. Okay. Okay, so moving on. Today we're making chorizo and eggs, or chorizo con huevos. And it's actually pretty easy. I've got just a couple ingredients here today. As a package of chorizo. You can find chorizo in a lot of different stores, a lot of different forms. It really comes two basic forms. It comes in a loose sausage, or it comes actually in a sausage casing. I always prefer the loose sausage, and you'll see in a moment when we start cooking why. If it comes in a casing and like an actual sausage form, there's other uses for it. You can grill it, or you can do other things with it. I find that it doesn't really work that well for our application today, but if you really needed to, you could cut that casing right down the side and then peel it off and cut up to pieces, and it would be okay. But today we're just going to use this plastic tube. There's a lot of different brands out there that make it in this form. It's about 9 ounces, and I find with this amount of chorizo, 6 eggs about does it. You could do more, you could do less, totally leave it up to you. We're gonna start by frying this, and then we'll start whisking the eggs, and I'll get to some of the tips and tricks. But really, it's just these 2 ingredients. We're not going to be adding any of the secret ingredients like we did for scrambled eggs. No water, no milk, no onion or garlic. You could certainly add some of the seasonings if you wanted to. If you know anything about chorizo, it's very flavorful. It sort of has like I don't know how to describe it exactly. It's just a pungent, spicy quality to it that is just love it. And so you really don't need any seasonings. There's so much flavor in this that it'll flavor the eggs totally well. But if you needed to, you could totally add some of those other things. On occasion, I've added some chili powder, or maybe some chipotle, some cumin, and maybe some Mexican oregano as well. But today it's just eggs and chorizo. It's actually really simple. We're gonna make a breakfast burrito, and I'll show you some of my tips and tricks with that as well. And so without further ado, we'll get started on our recipe. So we'll be right back. Okay, so let's get started. A bit of warning, the beginning of this process is kind of gross, just because of the resemblance that this bears to a certain substance that I just will not mention because we are eating or preparing to eat. So I find it's easy just to cut this open with little scissors, just give it a little snip. Make sure you wash your scissors because this is raw pork and nobody wants a case of botulism. But if you just peel it off, peel it back a little bit, and you can kind of just take it from the bottom. And here comes the gross part. Just take it, hold it from the bottom, and then you can kind of just mush it out. You get a nice little, and you can kind of just squeeze it out. Now, this is pork sausage, so there is already a lot of fat in here. You do not need to add oil or butter or any kind of fat, and that's one of the tricks that I use here. You'll see in a moment. Kind of just mush this up, and I got it started on medium so it could get hot. But once it's starting to fry like this, I'm gonna turn it down, And just mush it up. And again, this part is a little bit gross. Get over it. Let me turn this down. We don't want to burn it right away. What we want to do is we want to render the fat out of it. And what will happen is, kind of just like bacon, the fat will render out, and that will help fry the chorizo. Otherwise, it'll just burn, and then you'll end up with a lot of fat and greasiness, and that's just no bueno. So we're gonna lower the heat here, let the fat render out, and let it cook a little bit slower and sort of cook in its own fat. That's sort of my trick. That way, the fat, the grease and the fat fry the sausage for us, and then it kind of gets reabsorbed a little bit into the meat, and then it'll also help when we mix in the eggs a little bit as well. Set this aside. Set this to about medium-low, and it'll take about 15 or 20 minutes to fully render and cook. And in the meantime, we'll get started with our eggs. Okay, so now we've got our eggs. Our chorizo is over there frying. Got my little compost bin. If you don't compost, don't sweat it. Just throw them in the trash. We're gonna practice our. I should have done this ahead of time. Our one-handed break. So nice little crack. You can see it's a little crack. If you take it and just kind of squeeze it in your hand a little bit so that it pops open, and you can kind of use your fingers to pull it apart. See, it is sort of lightly simmering, if you will. So the fat is starting to render out of that, and that's what we want. We want it to come out, so it will help us cook and fry the chorizo. One of the little tricks I usually do is sometimes it gets a little too hot in the middle, so I kind of just spread out a little hole in the middle, push everything to the side, and let it cook on the side so that way it cooks evenly. You don't have to do that, depending on what kind of stove and pan you have. It'll be just fine, but that's just one of the tricks I use. Okay, just checking back in. You can see that it's starting to fry nicely. Every few minutes I kind of just come back and give it a nice little stir. Make sure it gets all mixed around. And as you'll see, in a few minutes, some of the bits will start to turn brown, and that's how you know they are fully cooked. Smell that? You smell that? Yeah. Yeah, I smell it. Chorizo, son. Nothing else in the world smells like that. I love the smell of chorizo in the morning. It smells like victory. Okay, as you can see, it's starting to resemble ground beef. So you can see all the liquid, all the fat, and the grease have sort of fried the sausage, and a little bit of has reabsorbed. There's still enough in the pan to give us some lubrication for the eggs, but this is the point where you can see that it's got a darker color to it, a lot of the grease is gone, and that's exactly what we're looking for. It is time to add the eggs. So just go ahead and pour it in here nice and slow. I like to make sure it gets in all the little nooks and crannies between the sausage. And just like before, we're going to let this sit for a moment. I'll give this a wash while this. Okay, so I like to let this sit for a moment, about 30 seconds to a minute. Depending on how many eggs you have, it'll take a little bit longer, but I kind of like to make sure it has a moment to cook and have a form before you start stirring it. So you can see now it's got some pieces, and this is the part where I kind of just like to stir it around, let all the liquid hit the pan, mix up the cooked parts. just when you think the last of that shine, that sheen, it's just about dulled and gone, turn off the heat. Again, the pan is plenty hot. There's still a lot of heat inside the eggs and sausage. They will continue to cook. Give them a few more stirs. And then I'm going to set them aside. Okay, now the best way I like to do tortillas is make sure you heat up your tortillas. If you don't heat them, they are less pliable, and so they can tend to break or crack, and you don't want to have that. You don't want the burrito to break. So I'm going to heat it up on the stove. If you have a gas range, I highly recommend it. It adds a little color and flavor and texture to the tortilla. Kids, don't do this without your parents or your parents' permission. You can do this on a plate. I find a big flat surface works well. So are you paying attention? Are you paying attention? Yeah, you. This is will change your life. I think a lot of people try to fold burritos the wrong way and then end up with a no bueno burrito. And so what I like to do is this is the shape that your burrito is going to be in here, this way. And so I'm gonna put the cheese this way. I'm gonna add the filler this way. I like mine to be a little extra big. These tortillas can hold a decent amount. So a few scoops and we're good. So I put the cheese down first. That way when I put the meat down, it has an opportunity to melt the cheese. Add the hot sauce. I like hot sauce, so I'm gonna drizzle on there. There we go. Now, moment of truth. Fold this in on the sides. This is the end of your burrito. You take this, fold it over, roll it back, take the little corners here, fold them in. And the real trick here is don't fold it, roll it. And this one's breaking, of course. So you take it and you actually give it a roll. And then you will have a burrito that is well contained in the bottom. Even if it is a little juicy, it won't drip out. And you can eat it without incident. So those are my tips and tricks. If you have any comments or questions, chorizo is not for everybody. In fact, there's a good part of my family that doesn't like chorizo, but there's another side that really does. I know my pseudonym doesn't reflect it, but I do have some Mexican heritage. Although I was raised by gringos, I've actually gotten some comments from some of my family, some requests rather, to start doing some more Mexican recipes. So I'll start doing a little bit more. We started with gringo burritos. Now we're doing chorizo con huevos. And if you have any requests or comments or anything like that, feel free to hit me up and I will do my best to accommodate. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.